we were asked by the National Institutes of Health to take another look at the black-white funding gap at NIH. And so we took a sample of 2,400 researchers and coded every line of their biosketch, and then looked at whether or not things like training and awards and publications affected whether or not they got funding. And after an exhaustive set of analyses, we found that Black investigators publish fewer papers and publish in less prestigious journals, and as a result, that explains about half of the Black-white funding gap. We then did a thought experiment where we said, okay, what if there was some sort of intervention, like a mentoring intervention, that raised publication productivity? And this is based on other research I have that shows that mentoring is effective for increasing publications. And so we used our model to assign publications of the average R01 recipient to Black investigators, and we found that that effectively closed the gap for both new and experienced investigators. One of the things we did with our study was identify where the careers start to diverge, and you see it beginning at the PhD and postdoc level. They publish the same number of papers, but those papers are cited less. So this seems to be an obvious place to sort of intervene in terms of mentoring and trying to help develop publications and the quality of the publications for these investigators. The NIH, after our first paper, announced an intervention, spending a lot of money on building the number of underrepresented minorities going into science, the BUILD network, and also the National Mentoring Network. And so our results suggest that mentoring could and should play a role. The process of how somebody gets from a graduate student in biomedical science to a career as an independent investigator is very complicated, and we have come a little closer to understanding where in the process this careers start to diverge. And so by identifying where, you can then tailor your approach to helping these investigators be successful. This is a part of an ongoing research agenda, and I would encourage the National Institutes of Health to study the process now. Our data are now over a decade old, and the review process is no longer used at NIH. They've changed how they review proposals. So it seems a next step would be to redo the analysis using the new data and new review process.